In the vicinity of a beautiful German forest lived two children named Hansel and Gretel. His father was a woodcutter, and every day he went out to the forest to look for firewood to sell in the village. His mother had died of a fever, and when his father remarried, he did it to a woman who was full of airs and little birds in her head. "Mom, can I set the table?" asked Hansel. She looked at him and said, "Yes, set the table, for what we have to eat," she said plaintively. "I would have had good delicacies if I had chosen a better husband." "Madam," Gretel told her, "can I help you with the broom?" She looked at her sulking and said, "Are you calling me a witch? Go on, drink and sweep well. That's how many servants I should have, and not be here as a joke for all of you." It happened that there was a great shortage in those lands, and when these things happen, poor people suffer from a lack of money for all the essentials, and of course, not so much firewood was sold, and things in our friends' houses were very, very bad. So bad they were that they had nothing to eat but bread. "What are we going to do with the children?" the father said one night to his wife. "I have nothing to feed them. My heart breaks into pieces to see them lose weight little by little." "We also had a hard time," she replied. "Woman, but we are adults, we better endure hardships." "Well," she said indifferently, "if it hurts you so much to see them languish little by little, let's take them to the forest tomorrow and leave them there." "But what do you say, woman? Are you crazy? How am I going to do such a thing with my children?" "Ah, then my husband. Why do you ask me? Only to complain? Don't you want a solution? What do you prefer? Watch them slowly starve to death? Or leave them in the woods, and who knows? Maybe someone will find them and welcome them into their home." Hansel, who had gotten up to drink water, overheard the conversation, and thinking about what could happen to him and his sister, he went out into the street, and seeing that with the moonlight some stones were shining, he began to put little stones that were shining in his pockets. The next day they all went out into the forest, supposedly to look for firewood. Arriving at a good stretch of road, the father told them, "Stay here, we will go into the forest to look for bundles of firewood." After a while, Hansel and Gretel fell asleep. When they woke up, night had already descended on them. "Hansel, what shall we do? We are lost, far from home, our father has not returned, how will we return?" Hansel told Gretel what he had heard the night before. "But don't be afraid, Gretel," he told her. "Last night I collected many stones that shine with the moonlight. This morning I dropped them on our journey. When the moon rises we will see their glow and we can go home." That's how it was. As soon as the lunar moon came out, its light began to bathe everything, and indeed the little stones that Hansel had thrown along the road led them little by little to the home. They knocked on the door, and the lady went to open it. The woman, upon seeing him, first made a tired face, and at the moment she changed and became a charming lady. "Darling, they're back. Come in. Come in, little ones," she said, filling them with hugs and kisses. "You had us very worried. We got lost in the woods and we couldn't find you," and she gave them hugs and kisses again. Gretel was stunned. Not knowing what to answer, Hansel did not understand anything at all. The lady had never treated him that way, not even a caress, not even a good morning. But, said the father foolishly, "but how did you find the way?" He managed to say the lady, with a huge fake smile on her face. Hansel was speechless, not knowing what to answer. "With some little stones that shine in the moonlight," replied Gretel naively. "Hansel picked him up last night. They shine in the moonlight, and so we have found our way." As she said this, The woman looked at Hansel with surprise and immediately added, "Well, wonderful, now everyone to sleep." She said, looking at Hansel, "Tomorrow is another day." That night Hansel was waiting again to see if he heard any conversation between his parents, and indeed it was. "What will we do?" said his father. "Shut up," replied the grumpy lady. "You're coming back with your fuss, complaints and pitiful crying. Tomorrow we'll go back to the forest, but we'll have to go deeper still. Don't you think that what happened today is a sign?" asked the husband that he showed to be a total and manipulable rad. "A sign. A sign. The only thing that shows is that they are smarter than you thought, and I am convinced that with such ingenuity they will be able to get ahead without any problem. On the contrary, if they stay at home, apart from taking away the little food that we remains, they will become vague and maintained. Alas! If my mother had given me a tenth of what we offer them. UW. Old, see if she had married me. Come on. She would be surrounded by luxuries, scamfort and good plates of food on the table. And now sleep at once, because from so much thinking you are burning the little brain you have left." And saying this, soon the lady was snoring as if nothing had happened. Hansel, fearful of what he had heard, approached the door to go out and look for more stones, but he found that it had been locked tight, and no matter how hard he tried to look for the key, he could not find it anywhere. The next morning they woke him up very early. They made them get up as if the house was on fire. Above, the lady yelled, "Come on. The donkey's milk has already passed and it's getting late." In the kitchen the father was waiting for them with a sad face and resignation. The lady gave him a reproachful look, and immediately turning to the children, she gave each one a little piece of bread and said, "Come on, dear. We have to look for firewood to see if we can sell and earn good money to give you all the bread you need." "Me," Gretel said, "I'm not feeling very well today. I should stay at home to keep it warm, and so when you come back I'll be waiting for you with some soup." "Soup?" The lady was surprised. "And what will you make the soup with?" "Nothing else, with water." "Come on, don't be whiny. The air will suit you wonderfully. When I was your age." "Wow, right away," Hansel said. "Do you still remember?" "Boy, don't interrupt me. I'm much younger than I appear," she told him curtly and quite annoyed. "Oh. If I had another husband you would already see my true stylized figure. With good clothes I would tell you." Well, let's go," the father ended up saying, looking disconsolately at the children. The four of them went out into the woods. Gretel took her brother tightly by the hand. "Don't worry," Hansel told him. "I couldn't go out last night to look for shiny stones. The lady closed the door and kept the key. But I had an idea. I'll go throwing crumbs from the bread they gave us to find our way back." This time they went in and in the forest, turned around, went back part of the way, and went back still deeper into the jungle. They did it with the idea of disorienting the children. Upon reaching a small clearing, they again left them there alone with the promise of returning very soon to look for them to return home. As soon as they left them and had moved a little away, the father said to the woman, "Do you think they will be able to find their way back? Come on, after the tour we've done. If they come back I swear I'll give them a kiss and I'll never ask you anything like that again. Hey, we've done so many twists and turns that even I am disoriented." The lady looked at him, wrinkling her lips, and taking him by the hand she led him down the path that she led to the house. "Oh, if my mother saw me, instead of two." I have 3 children to take care of. I don't know how to return. I don't know how to return. What would become of you without my skill? It was my turn to marry you. Come on, you won't get lost. No. If my mother already told me, find yourself a good man who will support you and take care of you. And thus, ruminating against their destiny, they left, moving both away from Hansel and Gretel. The children did not wait this time for the return of their parents, because if they waited for the night, the breadcrumbs would not shine like the stones of the night before. So once they saw them disappear, they stood up and began the way back. But alas, what a surprise they got when they saw that the little birds had eaten the breadcrumbs that Hansel had scattered all over the road. What will we do? Asked Gretel. The birds have eaten the bread. Hansel looked at her stunned. No, I don't know, Gretel. We've gone around so many times that she wouldn't know how to return home. They huddled on the ground, and before nightfall they decided to start walking in search of a path that could take them to the river, a village, or perhaps meet someone who could guide them. They walked for a long time, and in the distance they could see a trail of smoke, probably from the stove of some house. They headed towards the smoke, and wow! What a strange thing! Before his eyes appeared a little house of chocolate, cookies, puff pastries and candies. They were both amazed. Did hunger make them see that wonder? Were they hallucinating? Step by step they came closer, and Gretel, taking a piece of the wall, ate it and opened her eyes in hallucination. It was delicious. He was cupcake. Hansel, she said to her brother, eat. It's real. It's not a dream. Hansel began to eat, tearing off pieces of the wall as well, and part of the window. They were both in that pleasant feast when suddenly the door of the house opened and a rather old woman came out who looked at them with a smile. Eat, little ones. Eat all you want, she said. Don't worry. The children were silent. Come on. Don't be shy. You were hungry, right? What happens? Have you lost? Gretel was the one who spoke first. We were collected fighting with our parents, and we don't know how to find our way back to our house. Poor people, said the old woman. It is getting dark. Come, little ones, come and warm yourselves in the home. Inside there is more food. Rest tonight, and tomorrow you can return to your home. The children entered, shy and grateful for the love the woman was showing them. When the children passed and the old woman closed the door behind her, her face changed and her sweetness turned into a macabre expression of hate. She treated them with great care and delicacy during dinner. She brought them milk, cookies, pieces of cake, and she praised them with affectionate words. Poor children, eat heartily. I see you very skinny and emaciated. There is a lot of shortage, right? You won't go hungry here. Saying this, he grabbed Hansel's arms and said, you have little meat, boy. You'll have to get a little fatter. And looking at Gretel, he said, you can help me with the housework while you gain weight. But, we will leave tomorrow, said Gretel. Our father will be sad for us. Of course, little one. Don't pay attention to this old lady. She's going a bit out of my mind. When they satiated their appetite, they suddenly fell into a great drowsiness and a heaviness that made them almost fall asleep right there. The old woman looked at them quietly and with a strange smile. Hansel was afraid to see the old woman's face. He tried to wake up, but his eyes closed in spite of her, and without knowing how he fell fast asleep. When he opened his eyes, he was very surprised because he was in a kind of cage in a dark place. He tried to get out of his confinement, but a huge padlock prevented him. He didn't know how long he was locked up there, but suddenly he opened the door and saw his sister appear with a bucket and a broom. Hansel, Gretel told him, approaching him, "You've woken up." "What happened, Gretel? Why am I imprisoned in this cage?" "Oh Hansel, this morning when I woke up I was clinging to some chains. The lady of this house is horrible. Last night I don't know how we didn't see her true face. She is ugly, wrinkled, and bad, very bad. She has me chained and she forces me to do all the housework. He doesn't let me rest, and if I stop doing my job he gets very angry and threatens to put me in a big cauldron and cook me." Hansel was not surprised by him. "Child," said the old woman leaning out of the door, "you mumble so much there. Ah, your brother has already woken up." She went to the cage, and at that moment Hansel saw how horrible the old lady from the night before had become. You have to get fat for days so that you can eat well." Gretel looked at her startled. Come on, don't waste time on useless chatter. You have a lot to do." The kind old lady who had received them with so much affection turned out to be a horrible witch who had that little house in the woods looking for starving people to come and catch them so she could eat them later. Gretel was kept shackled with a shackle and a long chain so that she could do all the tasks she entrusted to her, and Hansel she had locked in a cage to fatten him up and eat him first. Every day she brought Hansel food, and good food besides: roast chickens, lamb's feet, potatoes stewed with peas, cakes for dessert, and plenty of fruit. She gave Gretel the leftovers of what she and Hansel did not eat at all. Every morning she would go to the cage and tell Hansel, "Come on boy, give me your hand to see how you are." But Hansel gave her a rooster's foot so the old woman wouldn't know if she was fat or not. "Bah, you're still just as skinny, you don't even get fat." As the place where he had Hansel was always quite dark, he could not see the boy well, but on the contrary he could see Gretel clearly, and despite the fact that he did not feed her as well as the boy, he saw her more robust and luxuriant. So a good morning, he decided that he would eat Gretel roasted and with a good sauce. Little girl. She looks at the oven to see if it's hot enough to bake the bread. Gretel, who after several days knew her intentions well, she answered him, "I don't know if the oven is hot enough for the bread. We will have to add more firewood. Silly girl, you just have to come closer and look inside." Gretel approached, but instead of looking into the oven, she looked through another hole. "But what are you doing so, Mema? To the right, further down, further up, to your left?" "Ah," said the very angry witch. "Here, this is where you have to look." In that, Gretel, who had backed down, gave her a push so hard that the witch entered the oven hole, and Gretel quickly closed the door so that she could not get out. "Ah, disgusting. When I get out of here I'll mash you up and eat you with a big pan of mushrooms." Gretel ran to look for the key that would release her from the Schar. CKLE, and then she released Hansel, telling him everything that had happened. They ran through the forest and finally found the river. They found a bridge that would let them cross to the other side, and at last they were able to find their way back home. They knocked on the door, and it was his father who opened it. When he saw them he cried bitterly and hugged him a lot and kissed him over and over again. He told them all the evil plan they had devised to leave them in the forest, and how sorry he was for having been carried away in such a horrible idea. His stepmother, angry at the complaints that the father had at all times because of what they had done on a good market day when they were trying to sell some firewood, began to argue with the man. You already have fed me with your crying and moaning. Look, there you stay. There will be so many men in life who give me good food and good clothes. She was so angry that she tripped over one of the stones on the ground, and when she fell she hit a bad blow and died instantly. The children in turn told everything that had happened to them at the witch's house. The father opened his eyes scared. Luckily, my children, that you have been able to escape. Since then they have lived together, with little to eat, but times change and everything is back to normal. One fine day, when they were looking for firewood in the forest, Hansel hit the path that led to the chocolate house, and everyone went to see if he was still standing. They got a big surprise. There was no house in the meadow. No sign that there had been any house there. And with all that I have told you, this story is over. Be careful, if one day you walk through a forest in Germany. Don't forget that if you see a little house made of chocolate, cake and candies, no matter how hungry you are at that moment, or no matter how sweet you are, don't go near it.
Es haut den stärksten Mann gleich um. Ein Blick von ihr und es macht BUM!